That's the whole thrill of sport. If you have a kid that's really dedicated, it's not the kid that's talented that wins in the end. It's the kid that goes out there in the wintertime and trains in the snow and trains in the rain, trains all year round and wants to make himself better is the thing that keeps me going.
That was Paddy McGrath, hammer coach and maker of champions. And I'm Martin Nutty.
And I'm John Lee, and we welcome you to another conversation for the global Irish nation here on Irish Stew.
This episode of Irish Stew is brought to you by Murph Guide, the New York City nightlife website, connecting the fun to the fun people. Visit murphguide.com.
Well, today we look at a sport the Irish have been prominent in, a sport I was mediocre in, a sport co-host Martin Nutty was quite proficient in, and a sport where our guest today was world class. Martin, I'm going to go there. It's hammer time.
Oh, that's a pretty impressive introduction, but I guess we've got to tell our audience who the guest is. So our guest is a guy called Paddy McGrath. I've known Paddy for a long time. We have something in common. We both came to America in somewhat the same way. That sounds a little bit cryptic, but we both came here on athletic scholarship. And with the upcoming Olympics in Tokyo this year, I figured it'd be kind of nice to talk about one of the Olympic events in track and field, specifically the hammer throw. And I'll talk a little bit about Paddy because he really has worn two hats over the last 30 years or so. Started off as an athlete. He's an Irish Olympian and went to the Sydney Games in 2000. He's a 6-time Irish national champion, a 3-time NC2A All-American. But he's also, if anything, an even more proficient coach. He is, to my mind, the maker of champions. Currently, he coaches at Manhattan College, but he also has set up an organization called the New York Hammer Throw Squad. He set that up in 2003. It's still operating. And within that particular group or club or squad, he has coached American high school champions, collegiate champions, and national champions. And currently, he's the coach of a young man called Rudy Winkler, who is ranked the #1 hammer thrower in the world. And with all of that, I'd like to welcome Paddy McGrath to Irish Stew. Welcome, Paddy.
Well, thank you, Martin, for the long and illustrious introduction. What you mentioned, I brought back a lot of memories. It's been a long time. I can't believe I'm getting that old, but I've been doing hammer throwing for close to 40 years now. And we also share another important factor. We both went to the same high school. So, and then we also had the same coach in high school as well, coming up through the ranks. So thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I'm still traumatized from a high school thing.
Well, yeah. Can I start there or should I just keep going?
Well, let's start very simply.
Sure.
Because not all listeners will know what the hammer throw is. So if you're going to explain it in 1 minute or less to somebody that had never seen this slightly unusual event or very unusual event, can you explain it?
Yes. Okay. So basically, it's like the shot put, which looks like a kind of a cannonball from the 1700s, and on it, it's attached to a 4-foot wire or chain, and on a handle, you hold it in your hands with a handle. And then you swing it 2 times above your head, and then you do 4 turns in the circle, and you try and throw it as far as you can. It's a 7-foot circle in a cage, and it's one of the oldest events in track and field. It dates back to the 1700s. Actually, it dates back even earlier to the time of Henry VIII. Henry VIII was known as a prolific hammer thrower and was famous for that in English royalty as well as an athlete. But it's been around for, even back to the time of the early Irish, the Stone Age. They used to throw the wheel and turn with it and try and throw it, or close to like a Highland Games type of thing.
Hey, Patty, I just want to ask you, because the word is hammer. This is a ball on the end of a wire, but it used to look a lot more like a hammer in its early stages, correct?
Yes, it did actually. That's if you ever see the Highland Games, it's like a ball with a wooden shaft in the middle of it, and they would throw it. And then at the start of the modern Olympics, they decided to have the ball with a chain and a wire, and with a handle and throw. So yeah.
So if we're going to spin it back a bit, Patty, since you've kindly explained exactly what this event is all about,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people actually might know the game from like one of those video games, like the Olympic Games. They had a hammer thrower in it, I remember, at one point in time.
Yeah.
But let's just spin it back a little bit. How did you get involved in this sport?
Well, okay. In 1984, I went to Gormanston High School in County Meath, and the same high school as you. And there we had a brother that was into the throwing events, and he was huge into track and field. So the first week of school, now this is a boarding school. We lived there for 7 days a week, and we went home like for a couple of hours on a Sunday. So if you remember, we used to have school on Saturdays too, and there was the brother that was there was huge into track and field, and I started throwing the shot, and he's like, "Come over here and try the hammer," and that was the start of it all.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the fact, I'll tease this, we have a shared coach. His name is Philip Conway.
Yeah.
Who actually didn't coach in Gormanston at all.
Yeah, he was kind of a national coach, and like when you got good enough, he would coach you, and he would invite you to clinics and all kinds of stuff. And he's monumental insofar as like he was from Ireland, but he went over to BU. And then he did a master's degree at Springfield. And he threw the shot in the 1972 Olympics. And then he went back to Ireland and became a phys ed teacher at Belvedere College in Dublin. And he started to coach like young guys to throw the hammer. And eventually, I'd say close to maybe 50 or 55, maybe 60 guys through the years came out here to America on scholarship for the hammer, to a lot of schools, like all over the country. And he changed a lot of lives. And, a lot of guys would have probably never gone to America if it weren't for Phil.
So you were one of those 50 or 60 guys, as was I.
Yeah.
And I think you fetched up at Manhattan College, what was it, in 1991? Is that?
Yeah, 1990 to 95, yeah.
Okay. So how was that handled? Or how did you get in touch with Manhattan College? What was the process back then?
Well, I think back then, before the internet, people looked, the coach from Manhattan College called Phil Conway, and he's like, "Hey, do you have any good kid coming up?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I've got this guy and I've got that guy." Or he would get a lot of calls from America, or back then they actually used to write letters to Phil and say, "We've got a spot if you have a thrower." And I got selected by Dan Mecca, and Freddie Dwyer was the head coach at Manhattan College at the time. He's the second guy to break the 4-minute mile after Roger Bannister, and he was the head coach at Manhattan, and he offered me a scholarship. And then I just packed my bags. I'd never been to America, and I just packed my bags in late August and went out to college. And that was it.
I was just going to say, I was thinking of that first time you went over to the circle and picked up the hammer, and, it sort of, you seemed like you connected with it immediately. But, what were those first few throws like? And was there a point where you go, I think I got it? I think I'm heading in the right direction?
That didn't happen. It was a long, long time. I was terrible, and I just enjoyed the free movement of the throw, and I just enjoyed the other guys that were training with me. And then when you're in a boarding school, you don't really have much to do. So our day was pretty much regimented from like 3 to 5. We did training, and then we had study hall and all that. So I just threw every day. I just loved the athletic movement. It was so graceful. I wasn't graceful at that time. I was new, and but I started to get, magazines and stuff. Like Phil Conway would send me stuff in the mail, and I would read another great guy, Kevin McGill. He wrote Hammer Notes, which was way ahead of its time, pre-internet, and he did a monthly booklet, and he used to send it out, and I would get that and read it, and I still have it today. There's been nothing done as well as that in the last 30 years. And he's still alive, and we talk a lot now that I've been living here for 30 plus years. Great guy.
How come so many Irish guys back in the 90s or 80s are going to America as throwers? What was going on there? America's a big country. Got to have their own guys, right?
Well, yeah, I think what happened was in the high school system here, there was no. They did track and field, but they didn't have the hammer throw. They just had shot and discus and javelin, but they never really had many states besides Rhode Island that would have the hammer. So we were fortunate that we would do the hammer in Ireland in high school. So we were like a little bit ahead of the curve, and there was an opening for that. Now that's how I started coaching, but there was an opening for guys who could turn and throw, and then they would get a scholarship and they would compete straight away. It was kind of, when I look back, it was a great opportunity. As in a couple of years, I'm going to have my own kids going to college. I didn't realize that getting a full scholarship to college was a big deal, but now I realize that it was a great opportunity for me. And I got to stay in America after I got a green card, and then I became a citizen, and I've been here for 30 plus years, and now I'm kind of involved in USA Hammer, which is kind of pretty awesome, which I enjoy.
Hey, Paddy, if I could, I alluded to my career as a very mediocre hammer thrower.
Yeah.
In high school, I did track for a few years. I did discus, shot put, and hammer. I wasn't very good in any of them. I like the hammer the best, but to your point, maybe only 3 or 4 meets a year did we throw the hammer. A lot of us, I grew up in Connecticut. Some places did, some places didn't. So it was a little bit of a niche sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Now there's a lot more states do it. I think over the last 15 years, there's a guy up in Rhode Island called Bob Gorley who does a high school hammer list, and he puts the top marks from all over the country. And every week he has a list, and you see who's the top guy in the country, or top 10, top 20, and that's been monumental in helping development of hammer throw in the USA.
So, Paddy, Ireland's got a long history of hammer throwing. So why come to America? Why not just go to college in Ireland?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of times the chance of a scholarship, the chance of adventure to come out to America from Ireland. Also, too, at the turn of the century, there was the Great Irish Whales that won Olympic medals for the USA. Paddy Ryan, Matt McGrath, no relation, although he does look like me if you see a picture.
Yeah, just a note to the listeners on here, we will post a picture of Paddy McGrath's doppelganger. Matt McGrath have the same last name. I'm still trying to prove that they're related, but I haven't figured that out.
But they were monumental Irish guys. I think a lot of them were in the NYPD, and they competed for America before Ireland was still under British control. So they actually, Matt McGrath he was on the US team, I think in 1912, the King of England was there, and during the Olympic ceremony, you're supposed to drop the flag of your country as you walk by the king or whatever, and he told the flag bearer, do not drop the American flag in front of the English king. So from then on, the American flag was never dipped at the Olympic Games. So that's a little bit of history for Matt McGrath. But coming out to America too, though, there was a lot of Irish guys through the years. Oh my God, he passed away 2 or 3 years ago. Fourth of the Olympics. John Lawler. John Lawler. Yeah, he came out here to Boston University. A lot of Irish guys in the Hammer came out to Boston University and Manhattan College. Usually New York and Boston. And a lot of them, like me, stayed after.
Tell me about the college experience. I listed out at the beginning of the show that you had 3 All-American titles to your name.
Yeah.
So was it just rapid progression when you got here, or how did that work out?
I think coming from Ireland, when you go to like a college like Manhattan College at the time, which was, a big track and field school, there was expectations to, work hard, train hard, compete. There was a lot more opportunities to compete in different parts of the country. I've been all over the USA. When I was out with Manhattan, we went to places like Nebraska, Idaho, that I, thinking back, like I traveled a lot and I loved it. And just the camaraderie of the team in college, and just the training was a lot higher. And of course, then as I trained harder, I got better.
Paddy, were there any differences in style that you saw when you came over?
Yeah, I think that basically a lot of Irish guys were based off Phil Conway's technical style, which is basically based from Russians and Germans, because they would come to Ireland and give clinics and stuff like that. And a lot of stuff was here in America, they were a little bit behind in technical aspects, but not anymore. I'm making sure of that. But yeah, they were a little bit behind in the late 80s, late 80s, early 90s, and it gave guys like us an advantage. But they learned pretty quick. There was one of my biggest competitors in college was Kevin McMahon. He was national champion a few times, and he went to the '96 Olympics and the 2000 Olympics for the USA, and still a good friend today. And if he's listening to this, I'd like to say hi, Kevin.
Another good gentleman of Irish extraction.
Yes. I think he's like third or fourth generation. But,
yeah.
Great guy. He lives in California. He's a California. He grew up in California. He was coached by another American Olympian called Ed Burke, who, if you'll recall, in 1984, he was the flag bearer for the Olympic team in Los Angeles. And he walked around the field holding the flag with one arm. So, yeah, he lives in he's from San Jose as well, California. Great guy.
Yeah, that was a memorable Olympic parade. I've never seen anybody carry a flag like that. Anybody that parades around carrying the American flag with one arm, that's a fairly impressive demonstration of strength.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you graduated out of Manhattan College in 1995, but unlike most people that graduate college, you kept going at it. So what was the thinking behind then? Because hammer throwing is not known as a money-making proposition. Yeah,
well, yeah, that's exactly true. I mean, I got a job. I was a phys ed teacher in New York City. After I graduated, I got a job straight away, and I started working. But I wanted to make the Olympics. I really that was my dream, was to go to the Olympics. And I was getting closer to the qualification mark. And in '95, after graduation, I decided to just try and shoot for Atlanta. So I trained for Atlanta, and I missed Atlanta by a foot. And that was soul crushing, but it made me more determined to focus for the next couple of years and just say, I still worked I worked full time, and I trained on the side, and I just loved it. I loved it. And the people along the way that are my friends are still my friends and competitors, are still pals today. But I trained then for a couple of years, and then I got a new coach after I graduated college, Roman Feldman. He was a former Soviet coach. He defected in 1987, and then he came over to New York. He had a He had a master's in track and field, an undergrad in track and field from the University of Kiev, and he had a PhD in movement. So he came to New York with, all these credentials, and he drove a cab. And then he went back to college, Brooklyn College, got his undergrad and master's in adapted phys ed. And now he's working in the Board of Ed like me, New York City public schools like me. So he coached me. And then once he started coaching me, things started to really take off. And I made it to the European Championships, then the World Championships, and then ultimately in 2000, I made it to the Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia.
Hey, Paddy, let me take you inside the circle, because we're getting into the high levels of competition right now.
Sure.
To sort of bring me into the mindset, you maybe you've had the first few throws where you're just kind of loosening up, and now the competition's getting for real. What's your mindset like? What's going through your head?
Well, you were trying to press you're trying to throw really, really hard. You're trying to gun it, but it's a kind of event that you can't. You have to be relaxed. So I always, if someone asks me what's it like to throw the hammer, I'm like, it's basically like going to the driving range and you're trying to hit a long ball, like with a driver or something. So you have to be tense, but you can't be too tense. You have to be, have some drive, but you also have to have a little bit of relaxation in your movement. And it's kind of like, I always describe it as like trying to hit a ball. And when you hit a good throw, it's like when you hit a good ball, it just takes off and it never comes down. That's that's the thrill. That's the rush that you get. It's the exact same thing, but you just have to hit a ball. I have to turn 4 times in a row with a 16-pound ball going about 60 miles an hour. So that's the thrill, and that's the difference. And you if you press too much, then you can get too tight, and then you won't be able to throw well because your rhythm is messed up.
Paddy, you used a word earlier that I found really interesting: graceful.
Yes.
And, it struck me that in various Irish pursuits, step dancing, boxing, Gaelic football, footwork is very important. And I've been watching some videos of hammer throwers to get ready. I'm just amazed by the footwork.
Yeah. You're amazed at the footwork of such big guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very technical sport. It's you're moving with your heel to your toe with the balls of your feet, and it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of skill to do it. But it's also really enjoyable. And now I'm a ex-hammer thrower, and I coach my kids and I show them how to do stuff. But as the years go on, it gets harder and harder. I think being a phys ed teacher has really helped me. I'm an adapted phys ed teacher. It's really helped me to be a better coach, to have patience and just do repetitions of, different exercises to make my kids get better.
I'm intrigued. Explain to me adapted phys ed.
Adapted phys ed is physical education for kids with different disabilities. So I have kids who are their ability to move is limited. They would be in wheelchairs and on crutches, and also mental disabilities as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been doing for the last 22 years.
So I guess even fairly simple movements are demanding for these children.
Very demanding, and repetition, and also patience to get it right. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. I drive my kids crazy, because if I say, okay, we can't throw because we'll just do drills, and they're like, oh no, because they know that I will just not stop, which is is a good trait to have. And I think a lot of the kids that come to my club, they learn a culture of hard work that they don't really get anywhere else today.
Now, before we delve into the club and your coaching any further, I just want you to tell me a little bit about the Olympic experience. So you go to Sydney in 2000.
Yeah.
That not a lot of people get that kind of experience.
Yeah, it was a great experience. It was kind of like, the childhood dream that you've made it, and then you get to the Olympics, and then there's a lot of waiting around. You're in the village. Your event is on in 5 days. You're practicing. You're training. You're going to the Olympic Village. You're eating lunch, and Tommy Lasorda walks by. You're, my all. It's a who's who of athletes that at the current time you see, and it's kind of amazing. I remember walking by, and the American basketball team is there. Sebastian Coe, just like it's a who's who of sportsmen and coaches that are in the village, and it's an amazing experience. It really, it's amazing. Then you compete yourself, and I didn't compete as well as I wanted, but I was still proud to have made the Olympic team, basically with the help of my coach, and to get there. And after that, though, it's the kind of a watershed moment in your life, because you're like, okay, my whole life has been geared about making the Olympics. Now what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I've done it, so now what? And then I kept training for another couple of years because I was still young and I still enjoyed it, and kept going along. And then eventually I aged out, as you would say. I got older, I got more sense, and then I said, let me stop throwing. And it wasn't until I met the 1956 Olympic champion in the hammer, Harold Conley, that he's like, well, why don't you start coaching a little bit? Maybe do this and that. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And he was developing this youth hammer development in the USA. And, he was very instrumental in starting me to start coaching, in a club, start coaching with more guys. And I work with another guy now, Kevin Sullivan, as well. And my other coach is also still involved, Roman Fellman. So we have a little club in New York. And I started coaching 2010. Just by accident, one of my friends of a friend called me up and said, hey, I've got a hammer thrower. Do you want to go take a look? And I was like, sure. So I came up, and then the kid was like, well, can you coach me? And his name was Alec Faldemeyer. He was my first champion. He was high school national champion in 2010. And he got a full scholarship to UCLA. And he headed out to UCLA, and in 2000, and I think the fall of 2010, we had a competition, and this young kid, he was only a freshman in high school. He got last in the competition, but he says, can I work with you? And I looked at him and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think you're going to be okay. Even though he got last, he says, I'm sorry I did so bad today. I said, no, don't worry about it. I knew that he was a diamond in the rough. So his name was Rudy Winkler, and he's been training with me for 11 years, and now he's number one in the world, and is pipped to get a medal at the Olympic Games, if there is an Olympic Games. I'm hoping. So yeah, no, the club that I've started is in New York, and about an hour from my house. It's a field, and we throw the hammer there on the weekends, and during the week I coach as well. Sometimes not when I'm coaching other places, but we've been very lucky to have such great kids. I mean, I've had 13 kids go to the Ivy Leagues, and a lot of kids have gone to really big schools, and I think altogether we've raised about $2.5 million in scholarships.
Yeah, that's great.
So a lot of those kids have gone on to, great things in their new careers as well. But I think when they came to our club, they learned to throw the hammer, but they also learned, what it takes to be successful in life, and a culture of hard work that they don't hear, a lot of anymore. And just the solid graft of training, and it's fun. It's enjoyable for me to give back. I think they give me more because they give me joy. I don't golf. I don't. This is my hobby. This is my passion. I can't sing or dance, but I think I'm pretty good at coaching kids to throw the hammer, and it's a joy for me.
I know you said, I read a quote of yours that bad throws are magically erased by one beautiful one. That must be what keeps them going, right?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. It's the one kid he'll throw terrible all day. He'll take like 40 throws and everyone will be horrible. And then at the end, he'll be tired enough to use technique and let his body relax and let it flow. And then he'll hit one. And that's the thing that keeps him coming back. So that's awesome, you know?
Yeah, there's something to be said for the positive feedback loop, I think, that you're given to these kids, right? In the sense that, you know, if I listen, learn, apply, I will improve, repeat.
Yeah.
and that's like an incredibly important life lesson. It may be getting delivered, you know, through the medium of an obscure sport, you know, for many. But I think it certainly also seems to play out academically, because a lot of these kids that you've coached are probably ending up going to colleges maybe that they had never even considered going to.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of kids that were decent in school, but I made them, you know, I said, try harder and, you know, work hard in school, work hard in training. And, you know, it's the same thing, put in the hours. And a lot of them have gone to we've had one go to Brown, one to Cornell, 5 to UPenn, one girl to Harvard, another kid to Columbia, and 3 to Dartmouth. And there's a lot of other schools as well. It's not just the Ivy League, but they're the ones that are closest to us in New York. And I'm pretty proud of that. You know, I also, our world is so small that if I have a good kid, I'll call a college coach and be like, hey, this guy's would be a good fit for you, or they call me and they'll say they're looking for somebody. And it's a joy for me to help a kid. You know, I just, it gives me a purpose, and I feel like I'm doing the right thing, paying it forward, because I was lucky enough years ago to have a coach like Phil Conway that believed in me and gave me the vision of America and, you know, throwing in the States. And, you know, if it weren't for him, I'd still probably be in Ireland, you know, and I'm eternally grateful to him for that as well.
Let me ask you, we'll double back again, but you kind of talked about Ireland. You've been living here since 1990, so it's over 30 years now.
Yeah.
So what are you? Are you Irish? Are you American? Are you Irish American?
Oh, God. All right. God. I guess I would be, you know, I always will be Irish. I've lived here for 30 years. I think this is a great country. It gives great opportunities to people. If you want it, you got to go get it yourself. But it's, you know, I've been lucky. I came here, I got a green card, and I worked with a green card, and then I got citizenship. I applied for citizenship as straight away as I could. I've been married here. I've been very lucky. I'm very lucky. I do a job that I really like, and I have a coaching career that I really enjoy, and I have a lot of good friends here. And I think America is a great place to live. I think it's the best. There's some social issues, of course. No place is perfect, but you know, Ireland has its share of issues too. But I think though, when America gets its head together, they can get stuff done. Like especially with the COVID vaccinations and stuff like that. I mean, we lead the way when we want to, and that's pretty incredible as well.
Paddy, when you go back home, do they comment on your Bronx accent?
Absolutely, yes. And it's very funny because I work in the Bronx and I go back to Ireland, and then my accent from Ireland gets heavy again. And then I come back to the Bronx and they love my accent. But I was like, your accent will be popular in Dublin, your Bronx accent. And it's kind of funny. But I work with a lot of different people. And yeah, my accent, I'm the Irish guy here, but over in Ireland, I'm the Yank. So,
right.
Well, what don't Irish people get about America and vice versa? What are your takeaways? You're a guy that's lived in both places now.
God. Yeah, I don't know. I think like Irish people would be more keep their cards close to their chest. Sometimes they can be negative. Here, people are a lot more positive about stuff. I don't know. It's like I enjoy both places. Sometimes when I'm more than 2 weeks in Ireland, though, it drives me crazy because it's hard to get stuff done. But it's a country I grew up in, and now I've been living longer here than I have in Ireland. So it's kind of weird. I guess I'll be always in like kind of some sort of Irish American limbo.
Right.
Yeah. I know the feeling. We share a similar history, and I kind of feel like I always see, the world through both American and Irish eyes. So when I'm in Ireland, I'm defending America. When I'm in America, I can be defending Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely.
But going back to, can you give us an idea of this hammer throw squad that you have in the club? What kind of scale is that? You kind of listed off a whole bunch of athletes who went to Ivy League schools.
Yeah.
Are we talking about hundreds of kids or?
No, it'd be like maybe through the last 10 years, probably like 70, 80 kids in total, give or take a few, and a lot of girls as well. And just we'd have training during the week and on the weekends, and I want to get it bigger. That's my goal. I'm going to retire in a few years, and that's going to be my big goal, to make more kids like a Rudy Winkler and stuff like that, or not just a Rudy Winkler, but just kids that can go to scholarships. And I'm hoping in the future to build a gym, and I'll have up all the pennants from all the different schools, and that'll be kind of incredible too. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good kids coming through, and the younger the better that they start, because they learn the movement, and it's fun.
How did they find you, Paddy?
Oh God, it's usually word of mouth. I don't really advertise. It's usually a friend of a friend will send, hey, there's this kid, or kids call me on my phone. I have a Instagram page, and I also, Paddy McGrath, New York Paddy in the Hammer. Like they'll put that in, and they figure out who this lunatic is.
So kids approach you, okay, but I'm guessing you don't take every kid on, right?
Oh no. Well, it depends. It depends in this day and age. It's not really the size of the kid; it's the will of his work ethic. Is he willing to work? Is he willing to put in the time to devote to this? Is he willing to do the work that it takes to get better? Is he willing to, come every week and not waste my time? That's a huge commitment. And a lot of times the parents see the commitment. And a lot of parents are happy that their kids are committed to something and doing something and enjoying it, and, shooting for a goal. Like there is the carrot there of a potential scholarship or potential access into a big school with this kind of niche sport,
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of niche sport, looking at the Olympics, to me, the Olympics are the classic games, the field sports that you're involved in, and things like, the running, wrestling. And, a few Olympics ago, I can't exactly remember, but they were talking about dropping wrestling, which to me is inconceivable. So what about sports like hammer, and the attention seems to go to these sports that almost didn't exist 20 or 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Do you think about that, or is there something that you need to do to make sure this stays viable?
Yeah. I mean, obviously me coaching and helping out kids and, growing the sport in my area, the tri-state area, is very important to me, and keeping the sport alive. I mean, I want to pass on the torch maybe to my son. My son is 7 years of age, and I'm hoping that he will follow in my footsteps. Or if he doesn't, it's not a big deal. But I want a lot of kids to learn how to throw this event, because I think it's incredible. I think it's a great event. It's fun. It's great to be with your peers and practice and all that. And when they were going to take the wrestling out of the Olympics, I thought that was insane. I thought that was like, wrestling is thousands of years old. And if you've ever trained or ever lived with wrestlers, I lived with wrestlers in college. They're the most dedicated guys I've ever met. I used to train with some wrestlers, and they would sit in the sauna for hours losing weight. I mean, I saw a guy lose 16 pounds in one day to make weight. Yeah.
Well, I used to be involved. I actually was a very mediocre wrestler too. So I know what you're talking about. I was in the unlimited class, so I didn't have to worry about weight. But
you know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I also was involved for a long time in horse racing, and that's a daily battle for the jockeys, to make weight.
Oh yeah. That's something I've never had to do, but I'll never forget one guy sitting in the sauna and using a credit card to peel the sweat off his skin.
Oh dear!
He was trying to get the weight down, and then would put on a sauna suit in the sauna and like start do jumping jacks and push-ups and stuff like. Yeah, the commitment is unreal. Like the work ethic is unreal. And I enjoyed being around guys like that were super motivated for their sport. And that's kind of the whole thrill of sport, is if you have a kid that's really dedicated. It's not the kid that's talented that wins in the end. It's the kid that goes out there in the wintertime and trains in the snow and trains in the rain, trains like all year round and wants to make himself better, is like kind of the thing that keeps me going. To help him.
So, Paddy, just before I got on the podcast with you today, I look at the ranking list, the world ranking list, and I noticed that there's 3 American men in the top 5, and the top 4 in the world on the women's side are all Americans.
Yes.
So it's just some kind of strange golden age, because used to be an event that was totally dominated by the Eastern Bloc, think Russia, etc., right? So what's going on? How this happened?
Okay, the Eastern Bloc was way ahead because they had a lot of technical coaches. They had a lot more. A lot of these guys were full-time in the army. And then when the fall of the Soviet Union in 92, a lot of these countries broke away from each other. So instead of having just the Soviet Union, now you had like 20 different countries and 20 different hammer throwers from different parts of the world were now competing. And what happened eventually is, I think after the collapse of the Soviet Union, a lot of coaches left, and a lot of funding was taken away, and there's no more, they had no mass sports programs in these former Soviet Union countries. Now there's only a few that have kind of professional high-level coaching, track and field. And I think in America, now that we have a huge collegiate system, we have a lot of kids throwing the hammer now. At all different levels, especially now we have a lot more kids than we ever had throwing in high school. And as they develop through high school and go into college, they'll make it there or keep going. And then there's a lot of guys that after college now have gone to train in the Olympic Training Center and or just work part-time and are still training. And it's the same with the women. The women are doing incredible. Deanna Price 2019, she won the World Championships. Rudy got to the final. He got the top 12 in Doha in Qatar. And it's coming along. But this year has been a really, really good year for USA Hammer, because there's Rudy's in first in the world with 81.98. Second is the guy Fadczek from Poland, and then number 3 I think is Sean Donnelly, possibly an Irish connection there, and 4th is Daniel Haw from Atlanta. So it's the USA has really a strong men's team and women's team. And in previous Olympics, they didn't really have through the years. But the last guy to win a medal for the men was Lance Steele in 1996. So, it's pretty amazing. I'm glad I'm a little bit a part of that, you know?
What should we look for with Rudy Winkler? We're going to pretend the Olympics is going on. What should we be looking for?
Well, I mean, as I say to him, like, you don't think about the Olympics. You have to think about the U.S. Olympic trials. They're the most important thing because it's the toughest team to make. Because if you can have the standard to go to the Olympics, but in the USA track and field has always had it at the Olympic trials. The first 3 guys past the post get to go to the games, and that's it. So you have to have your A game on the day of the Olympic trials. That's it. Otherwise, you're not going to the Olympics. So I was like, don't even think about Japan. Put that out of your mind. You have to think of step number 1, and then you work on step number 2. But hopefully, please God, everything goes well. But the Olympic trials are an amazing competition. He won it in 2016 when he was only 21. So, he was not favored to win at all. I'd wish I'd put a few dollars on him because I would have made a lot of money. But he's an exceptional student. He went to Cornell, and then he finished up his education in Rutgers. He works as a cyber security expert. And he works online and stuff like that. So he's very talented kid, and also very talented student, and very hard worker. And I'm very proud to be working with him for the last 11 years. It's nice to be involved with an American story with a guy called Rudy. If you remember that Notre Dame film with from I think the early 90s, So.
Yeah, I thought you were making a pitch for a movie deal there.
Hey, speaking of movie deals, I was going to save this to the end, but here's the opening. Are you familiar with the movie called Geordie, or some places called
Geordie?
Wee Geordie?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So it's about a Scottish hammer thrower. They're throwing the hammer initially with the kind that was on the end of the wooden pole.
Yeah.
Of course, he's a love interest, as you would expect, and he gets the girl in the end. So is that pretty much the life of a hammer thrower?
Well, I remember watching that movie, and at the start, he's a scrawny, small kid, and he gets this thing in the mail from this guy that's like a weightlifting guru, and he tells him what to do, writes some programs, and then he eats the stuff like I think it's porridge or oatmeal, and he eats it, and through the years he just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then in the movie he meets the guy with the strong man. It was just funny movie. Wee Geordie. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. All you younger guys should YouTube it, as you do everything else.
So as long as the hammer thrower gets the girl at the end.
Yeah, and wore a kilt as well.
Right, exactly.
He wore a kilt throwing the hammer. Yeah, it's funny.
Besides encouraging Rudy to eat more porridge, can you talk about the preparation work right now at this point? So how many weeks away are the Olympic trials?
4 weeks. They're 4 weeks away. So he had a meet in Arizona on Saturday, and he went to the Olympic Training Center because they're having another competition on Saturday. So he's in San Diego right now, and for a few days he's sending videos to me through the phone and stuff like that. And he has a program. I give him a program. Then when he comes back, he'll get another program to get ready for the Olympic trials in a couple of weeks. So he won't really compete for the next couple of weeks. Just get ready for that.
So the difficulty here, Paddy, I think, is he has to be in top-notch condition for the Olympic trials. And then assuming all goes well,
yes,
to be in top-notch condition again for the Olympics.
Yes.
So how do you balance all that stuff out?
The thing now at this stage is not to push too hard. Just keep the juggernaut rolling along. Don't if it's not broke, don't fix it, and just keep going away. He's a very good competitor. He knows his body very well. A lot of times as a coach, you'll ask, like, how you feeling today? And I say, I don't feel okay, like whatever. Or I feel like tired. I'll say, okay, if you feel tired, you do a little bit, but don't take a rest. You don't want to get injured, or, you just plod along and you work with what you have. And he's been doing the same type of exercises for years. So he knows how to start. He knows how to warm up and all that. He's very easy to coach, very easy guy. He's learned a lot in the last 11, 12 years. So, I think we're a decent team.
So, Paddy, this is the moment in the show where we ask people to give us their Seamus plug. It used to be shameless plug, and then we saw, it was an Irish thing, so it kind of got converted into a Seamus plug.
Yeah.
So, do you have any kind of particular thing that you want to tell us about that people should look towards?
Well, I mean, I don't really have that many interests, but I love coaching, and if anyone is interested in or has any kid that they'd be interested to go coaching with me, just look up the New York Hammer Squad, and we'll take it from there.
That's great. Listen, Paddy, really loved having you on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to wish you the best, and obviously Rudy, we're going to be rooting for him. It'd be great to see an American back on the podium again, maybe even in the top spot. And fingers crossed it all goes well in the Olympic trials, and then obviously on to the Olympics.
Great.
Thank you, Paddy. Loved it.
Thank you so much.
Martin, I don't know if Paddy would like the term I'm going to use right now, but it was a pleasure to talk to someone who is such an evangelist for his sport. And what a great sport when you really start to scratch beneath the surface. The hammer throw, a great classic Olympic sport. And I know you've known him a long time, but after our conversation, I felt like I've known him a long time too.
Yeah, Paddy's a pretty down-to-earth kind of guy. And maybe he'd be quite comfortable with that evangelist term. I believe he has an uncle that's actually a bishop, so maybe that will keep the bishop happy in the family. But I've known Paddy for a long time, probably 30 years or so. We actually, as he mentioned, even went to the same secondary school, as we say in Ireland, or over in the States here, a high school. And I've watched him develop over those years from a world-class athlete that went to the Olympic Games to now a world-class coach. And what comes across to me is Paddy's dedication to giving back to the sport that has given a lot to him. You really get a sense for his passion, the enjoyment of the opportunity to change the lives of others. And he does so by holding them to a high standard, by demanding a high standard, not just when they're throwing the hammer, but also academically. And that's attested to the fact of the number of kids that have gone through his club, that have worked directly with him, that have gone on to all sorts of universities, and in many cases, Ivy League schools. So he's a really impressive guy. He's grounded, and I know he's greatly loved by the people whose lives he's changed.
I like there were some moments there where I felt he forgot he was talking to us, and he was just talking about what he loved, that throwing the hammer and teaching other people how to do it. A couple of words popped out for me when he was talking about graceful. You think about swinging a 16-pound ball around your head. How graceful is that? But you watch what it takes to do that. It is extremely graceful sport. And that really seemed to appeal to him, the freedom he felt in the sport. And he also referred to it at one point as beautiful. And he has a quote that I brought up. All those bad throws are mentally, magically erased by one beautiful one. And he seems to be able to instill that into his students. And there's one student in particular we're going to be keeping our eyes on.
Yeah, that's Rudy Winkler, I guess, his prize student, who, as we mentioned, is the number one ranked thrower in the world right now. Rudy will be getting ready to compete at the Olympic trials in June. Assuming everything goes well, he has to finish in the top three, and American standard is very high this year, so that's not a guarantee. But fingers crossed, all goes well. He gets in the top three in the Olympic trials, and then fingers crossed as well that there will actually be an Olympic Games this year in Tokyo. And more fingers crossed, because if he performs up to his capabilities on that big day in the Olympic Stadium in Tokyo, he could very well be making a visit to the podium and maybe even to the top step on that podium.
Rudy. Well, Martin, a lot of our listeners ask how they can help spread the global Irish conversation. What do you think?
Best thing people can do to help out the podcast is to simply share the episode. If you like what you've heard so far in this episode or other episodes, share it on social media, whether that's Facebook or whether that's Twitter or whether that's Instagram, or share it via email or word of mouth. All of those things are going to help us out. And don't be shy about dropping us a note. You can do so on our website.
Irish Stew is produced by John Lee, Martin Nutty, and Bill Schultz. Editing, mixing, and mastering by Bill Schultz. Music on Irish Stew was composed and performed by Rosa Nutty, with Donald Bowens on drums, Cathal O'Riordan on bass and synthesizer. For more on Rosa Nutty's music, please visit rosanutty.com.